Chapter 25, The Benefit. The Jackson Junior League annual ball and benefit is known simply as the benefit to anyone who lives within a 10-mile radius of town. At 7 o'clock on a cool November night, guests will arrive at the Robert E. Lee Hotel Bar for the cocktail hour. At 8 o'clock, the doors from the lounge will open to the ballroom. Swags of green velvet have been hung around the windows, adorned with bouquets of real holly berries. Along the windows stand tables with auction lists and prizes. The goods have been donated by members and local shops, and the auction is expected to generate more than $6,000 this year, $500 more than last year. The proceeds will go to the poor, starving children of Africa. In the center of the room, beneath a gigantic chandelier, 28 tables are dressed and ready for the sit-down dinner to be served at 9. A dance floor and bandstand are off to the side, opposite the podium where Hilly Holbrook will give her speech. After the dinner, there will be dancing. Some of the husbands will get drunk, but never the member wives. Every member there considers herself a hostess, and will be heard asking one another, "Is it going all right? Has Hilly said anything?" Everyone knows it's Hilly's night. At 7 on the dot, couples begin drifting through the front doors, handing their furs and overcoats to the men in gray morning suits. Hilly, who's been there since 6 o'clock sharp, wears a long taffeta maroon-colored dress. Ruffles clutch at her throat, swaths of material hide her body. Tight-fitted sleeves run all the way down her arms. The only genuine parts of Hilly you can see are her fingers and her face. Some women wear slightly saucier evening gowns, with bare shoulders here and there, but long kid leather gloves ensure that they don't have more than a few inches of epidermis exposed. Of course, every year some guest will show up with a hint of leg or a shadow of cleavage. Not much is said, though. They aren't members, those kind. Celia Foote and Johnny arrive later than they'd planned, at 7:25. When Johnny came home from work, he stopped in the doorway of the bedroom, squinted at his wife, briefcase still in hand. "Celia, you think that dress might be a little bit too, open at the top?" Celia had pushed him toward the bathroom. "Oh, Johnny, you men don't know the first thing about fashion. Now hurry up and get ready." Johnny gave up before he even tried to change Celia's mind. They were already late as it was. They walk in behind Dr. and Mrs. Ball. The Balls step left, Johnny steps right, and for a moment it is just Celia standing under the holly berries in her sparkling hot pink gown. In the lounge, the air seems to still. Husbands drinking their whiskey stop in mid-sip, spotting this pink thing at the door. It takes a second for the image to register. They stare, but don't see, not yet. But as it turns real, real skin, real cleavage, perhaps not so real blonde hair, their faces slowly light up. They all seem to be thinking the same thing. Finally. But then, feeling the fingernails of their wives, also staring, digging into their arms, their foreheads then wrinkle. Their eyes hint remorse, as marriages are scorned. "She never lets me do anything fun." Youth is remembered. "Why didn't I go to California that summer?" First loves are recalled. Roxanne. And all of this happens in the span of about 5 seconds, and then it's over, and they're just left staring. William Holbrook tips half his gin martini onto a pair of patent leather shoes. The shoes are attached to the feet of his biggest campaign contributor. "Oh, Claiborne, forgive my clumsy husband," says Hilly. "William, get him a handkerchief." But neither man moves. Neither, frankly, really cares to do anything more than just stare. Hilly's eyes follow the trail of gazes and finally land on Celia. The inch of skin showing on Hilly's neck grows taut. "Look at the chest on that one," an old geezer says. "Feel like I'm not a year over 75 looking at those things." The geezer's wife, Eleanor Coswell, an original founder of the league, frowns. "Bosoms," she announces with a hand to her own, "are for bedrooms and breastfeeding, not for occasions with dignity." "Well, what do you want her to do, Eleanor? Leave 'em at home?" "I want her to cover them up." Celia grabs for Johnny's arm as they make their way into the room. She teeters a bit as she walks, but it's not clear if it's from the alcohol or the high heels. They drift around, talking to other couples. Or at least Johnny talks, Celia just smiles. A few times she blushes, looks down at herself. "Johnny, do you think I might have overdressed a little for this thing?" The invitation said formal, but these girls here all look like they're dressed for church. Johnny gives her a sympathetic smile. He'd never tell her I told you so, and instead whispers, You look gorgeous, but if you're cold, you can put my jacket on. I can't wear a man's jacket with a ball gown. She rolls her eyes at him, sighs. But thanks, honey. Johnny squeezes her hand, gets her another drink from the bar. Her fifth, although he doesn't know this. Try and make some friends. I'll be right back. He heads for the men's room. Celia is left standing alone. She tugs a little at the neckline of her dress, shimmies down deeper into the waist. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. Celia sings an old county fair song softly to herself, tapping her foot and looking around the room for someone she recognizes. She stands on tiptoe and waves over the crowd. Hey, Hilly, yoo-hoo! Hilly looks up from her conversation a few couples away. She smiles, gives a wave, but as Celia comes closer to her, Hilly heads into the crowd. Celia stops where she is, takes another sip of her drink, and all around her, tight little groups have formed, talking and laughing, she guesses, about all those things people talk and laugh about at parties. Oh, hey there, Julia, Celia calls. They'd met at one of the few parties Celia and Johnny attended when they first got married. Julia Fenway smiles, glances around. It's Celia, Celia Foote. How are you? Oh, I just love that dress. Where'd you get that? Over at the Jewel Tailor shop? No, Warren and I were in New Orleans a few months ago. Julia looks around, but there's no one near enough to save her. And you look very glamorous tonight. Celia leans over. Well, I asked Johnny, but you know how men are. Do you think I'm a tad overdressed? Julia laughs, but not once does she look at Celia in the eye. Oh no, you're just perfect. A fellow leaguer squeezes Julia on the forearm. Julia, we need you over here a second. Excuse us. They walk away, heads leaned close together, and Celia is alone again. 5 minutes later, the doors to the dining room slide open. The crowd moves forward. Guests find their tables using the tiny cards in their hands, as oohs and ahs come from the bidding tables along the walls. They are full of silver pieces and hand-sewn day gowns for infants, cotton handkerchiefs, monogrammed hand towels, a child's tea set imported from Germany. Minnie is at a table in the back polishing glasses. Aibileen, she whispers. There she is. Aibileen looks up, spots the woman who knocked on Miss Leafold's door a month ago. Ladies better hold on to their husbands tonight, she says. Minnie jerks the cloth around a rim of a glass. Let me know if you see her talking to Miss Hilly. I will. I've been doing a superpower prayer for you all day. Look, there's Miss Walters, old bat, and there's Miss Skeeter. Skeeter has on a long-sleeved black velvet dress, scooped at the neck, setting off her blonde hair, her red lipstick. She has come alone and stands in a pocket of emptiness. She scans the room, looking bored, then spots Aibileen and Minnie. They all look away at once. One of the other helpers, Clara, moves to their table, picks up a glass. Aibileen, she whispers, but keeps her eyes on her polishing. Is that the one? One what? The one who's taken down the stories about the help. What's she doing it for? Why's she interested? I hear she's been coming over to your house every week. Aibileen lowers her chin. Now look, we gotta keep her a secret. Minnie looks away. No one outside the group knows that she's a part of this. They only know about Aibileen. Clara nods. Don't worry, I ain't telling nobody nothing. Skeeter jots a few words on her pad, notes for the newsletter article about the benefit. She looks around the room, taking in the swags of green, the holly berries, red roses, and dried magnolia leaves set as centerpieces on all the tables. Then her eyes land on Elizabeth, a few feet away, ticking through her handbag. She looks exhausted, having had her baby only a month ago. Skeeter watches as Celia Foote approaches Elizabeth. When Elizabeth looks up and sees who she's been surrounded by, she coughs, draws her hand up to her throat as if she's shielding herself from some kind of attack. Not sure which way to turn, Elizabeth? Asks Skeeter. What? Oh, Skeeter, how are you? Elizabeth offers a quick, wide smile. I was feeling so warm in here. I think I need some fresh air. Skeeter watches Elizabeth rush away, at Celia Foote rattling after Elizabeth in her awful dress. That's the real story, Skeeter thinks. Not the flower arrangements or how many pleats are around the rear of Hilly's dress. This year, it's all about the Celia Foote fashion catastrophe. Moments later, dinner is announced and everyone settles into their assigned seats. Celia and Johnny have been seated with a handful of out of town couples, friends of friends who aren't really friends of anyone at all. Skeeter is seated with a few local couples, not President Tilly or even Secretary Elizabeth this year. The room is full of chatter, praise for the party, praise for the Chateaubriand. After the main course, Hilly stands behind the podium. There is a round of applause and she smiles at the crowd. Good evening. I sure do thank y'all for coming tonight. Everybody enjoying their dinner? There are nods and rumbles of consent. Before we start the announcements, I'd like to go ahead and thank the people who are making tonight such a success. Without turning her head from the audience, Hilly gestures to her left, where 24 women have lined up, dressed in their white uniforms. A dozen men are behind them in gray and white tuxedos. Let's give a special round of applause to the help for all the wonderful food they cooked and served, and for the desserts they made for the auction. Here, Hilly picks up a card and reads, in their own way, they are helping the League reach its goal to feed the poor, starving children of Africa, a cause, I'm sure, dear to their own hearts as well. The white people at the tables clap for the maids and the servers. Some of the servers smile back. Many, though, stare at the empty air just above the crowd's heads. Next, we'd like to thank those non-members in the room who have given their time and help, for it's you who made our job that much easier. There is light applause, some cold smiles and nods between members and non-members. Such a pity, the members seem to be thinking. Such a shame you girls haven't the gentility to join our club. Hilly goes on, thanking and recognizing in a musical, patriotic voice. Coffee is served and the husbands drink theirs, but most of the women keep rapt attention on Hilly. Thanks to Boone Hardware, let us not forget Ben Franklin's dime store, she concludes the list with, and of course, we thank our anonymous contributor of, supplies for the Home Help Sanitation Initiative. A few people laugh nervously, but most turn their heads to see if Skeeter has had the gall to show up. I just wish instead of being so shy, you'd step up and accept our gratitude. We honestly couldn't have accomplished so many installations without you. Skeeter keeps her eyes on the podium, her face stoic and unyielding. Hilly gives a quick, brilliant smile. And finally, a special thanks to my husband, William Holbrook, for donating a weekend at his deer camp. She smiles down at her husband and adds in a lower tone, and don't forget, voters, Holbrook for state senate. The guest offers an amicable laugh at Hilly's plug. What's that, Virginia? Hilly cups her ear and then straightens. No, I'm not running with him. But Congressman with us here tonight, if you don't straighten this thing out with separate schools, don't think I won't come down there and do it myself. And there is more laughter to this. Senator and Mrs. Whitworth, seated at the table in the front, nod and smile. At her table in the back, Skeeter looks down at her lap. They spoke earlier, during the cocktail hour. Mrs. Whitworth steered the senator away from Skeeter before he could give her a second hug. Stuart didn't come. Once the dinner and the speech have ended, people get up to dance. Husbands head for the bar. There is a scurry to the auction tables for last-minute bids. 2 grandmothers are in a bidding war over a child's antique tea set. Someone started the rumor that it had belonged to royalty and had been smuggled out via donkey cart across Germany until it eventually wound up in the Magnolia Antique Store on Fairview Street. The price shot up from $15 to $85 in no time. In the corner by the bar, Johnny yawns. Celia's brow is scrunched together. I can't believe what she said about non-members helping. She told me they didn't need any help this year. Well, you can help out next year, Johnny says. Celia spots Hilly. For the moment, Hilly has on a few people around her. Johnny, I'll be right back, Celia says. And then, let's get the hell out of here. I'm sick of this suit. Richard Cross, who's a member of Johnny's duck camp, slaps Johnny's back. They say something, then laugh. Their gazes sweep across the crowd. Celia almost makes it to Hilly this time, only to have Hilly slip behind the podium table. Celia backs away as if she's afraid to approach Hilly, where she'd seemed so powerful a few minutes ago. As soon as Celia disappears into the ladies' room, Hilly heads for the corner. Why, Johnny Foote, Hilly says. I'm surprised to see you here. Everybody knows you can't stand big parties like this. She squeezes the crook of his arm. Johnny sighs. You are aware that doe season opens tomorrow. Hilly gives him an auburn lipstick smile. The color matches her dress so perfectly, it must have been searched out for days. I am so tired of hearing that from everybody. You can miss one day of hunting season, Johnny Foot. You used to for me. Johnny rolls his eyes. Celia wouldn't have missed this for anything. Oh, where is that wife of yours? She asks. Hilly's still got her hand tucked in the crook of Johnny's arm, and she gives it another pull. Not at the LSU game serving hot dogs, is she? Johnny frowns down at her, even though it's true that is how they met. Oh, now you know I'm just teasing you. We dated long enough to where I can do that, can't I? Before Johnny can answer, Hilly's shoulder is tapped and she glides over to the next couple, laughing. Johnny sighs when he sees Celia headed toward him. Good, he says to Richard. We can go home. I'm getting up in, he looks at his watch, 5 hours. Richard keeps his eyes locked on Celia as she strides toward them. She stops and bends down to retrieve her dropped napkin, offering a generous view of her bosoms. Going from Hilly to Celia must have been quite the change, Johnny. Johnny shakes his head. Like living in Antarctica all my life and one day moving to Hawaii. Richard laughs. Like going to bed in a seminary and waking up at Ole Miss, Richard says, and they both laugh. Then Richard adds in a lower voice, like a kid eating ice cream for the very first time. Johnny gives him a look. That's my wife you're talking about. Sorry, Johnny, Richard says, lowering his eyes. No harm meant. Celia walks up, sighs with a disappointed smile. Hey, Celia, how are you? Richard says. You sure are looking nice tonight. Thanks, Richard. Celia lets out a loud hiccup, and she frowns, covers her mouth with the tissue. You getting tipsy? Asks Johnny. She's just having fun, aren't you, Celia? Richard says. In fact, I'm fixing to get you a drink you're gonna love. It's called an Alabama Slammer. Johnny rolls his eyes at his friend. And then we're going home. 3 Alabama Slammers later, the winners of the silent auction are announced. Susie Purnell stands behind the podium while people mill about drinking or smoking at the tables, dancing to Glenn Miller and Frankie Valli songs, talking over the din of the microphone. As names are read, items are received with excitement of someone winning a real contest, as if the booty were free and not paid for at 3, 4, or even 5 times the store value. Tablecloths and nightgowns with the lace tatted by hand bring in high bids. Odd sterling servers are popular for spooning out deviled eggs, removing pimentos from olives, cracking quail legs. And then there are the desserts. Cakes, slabs of pralines, divinity fudge, and of course, Minnie's pie. And the winner of Minnie Jackson's world-famous chocolate custard pie is Hilly Holbrook. There's a little more applause for this one, not just because Minnie's known for her treats, but because the name Hilly elicits applause on any occasion. Hilly turns from her conversation. What? Was that my name? I didn't bid on anything. She never does, Skeeter thinks, sitting alone a table away. Hilly, you just won Minnie Jackson's pie. Congratulations, says the woman to her left. Hilly scans the room, eyes narrowed. Minnie, having heard her name called in the same sentence as Hilly's, is suddenly very alert. She's holding a dirty coffee cup in one hand, a heavy silver tray in the other, but she stands stock still. Hilly spots her but doesn't move either, just smiles very slightly. Well, wasn't that sweet? Someone must have signed me up for the pie. She doesn't take her eyes off Minnie, and Minnie can feel it. She stacks the rest of the cups on the tray and heads for the kitchen as fast as she can. Why, congratulations, Hilly! I didn't know you were such a fan of Minnie's pies. Celia's voice is shrill. She's come up from behind without Hilly noticing. As she trots toward Hilly, Celia stumbles over a leg chair. There are sideline giggles. Hilly stands very still, watching her approach. Celia, is this some kind of joke? Skeeter moves in closer too. She's bored to death by this predictable evening. Tired of seeing embarrassed faces of old friends, too scared to come and speak to her. Celia's the only interesting thing to happen all night. Hilly, Celia says, grasping Hilly's arm, I've been trying to talk to you all night. I think there's been some kind of miscommunication between us, and I just think if I explained... What have you done? Let me go, Haley says between gritted teeth. She shakes her head, tries to walk off. But Celia clutches Haley's long sleeve. No, wait! Hang on! You've got to listen! Haley pulls away, but still, Celia doesn't let go. There's a moment of determination between them. Haley trying to escape, Celia holding on. And then, a ripping sound cuts through the air. Celia stares at the red material in her fingers. She's torn the auburn cuff clear off of Haley's arm. Haley looks down, touches her exposed wrist. What are you trying to do to me? She says in a low growl. Did that maid put you up to this? Because whatever she told you, and whatever you've blabbed to anyone else here. Several more people have gathered around them, listening, all looking at Haley with frowns of concern. Blabbed? I don't know what you. Haley grabs Celia's arm. Who did you tell? She snarls. Minnie told me. I know why you don't want to be friends with me. Susie Purnell's voice over the microphone, announcing the winners, grows louder, forcing Celia to raise her own voice. I know you think me and Johnny went behind your back, she yells, and there's laughter from the front of the room over some comment and some more applause. Just as Susie Purnell pauses over the microphone to look at her notes, Celia yells, But I got pregnant after you broke up. The room echoes with the words. All is silent for a few long seconds. The women around them wrinkle their nose. Some start to laugh. Johnny's wife is drunk, someone says. Celia looks around her. She wipes at the sweat that's beading on her makeup forehead. I don't blame you for not liking me. Not if you thought Johnny cheated on you with me. Johnny never would have. And I'm sorry I said that. I thought you'd be tickled you won that pie. Billy bends over, snatches her pearl button from the floor. She leans closer to Celia so no one else can hear. You tell your maid, if she tells anybody about that pie, I will make her suffer. You think you're real cute signing me up for that auction, don't you? What, you think you can blackmail your way into the league? What? You tell me right this minute who else you've told. I didn't tell nobody nothing about a pie. You liar, Hilly says, but she straightens quickly and smiles. There's Johnny. Johnny, I think your wife needs some attention. Hilly flashes her eyes at the girls around them, as if they're all in on a joke. Celia, what's wrong? Johnny says. Celia scowls at him and then scowls at Hilly. She's not making sense. She called me a liar, and now she's accusing me of signing her name on that pie, and... Celia stops and looks around like she recognizes no one around her. She has tears in her eyes. Then she groans and convulses. Vomit splatters onto the carpet. Oh, shit, Johnny says, pulling her back. Celia pushes Johnny's arm off of her. She runs for the bathroom, and he follows. Haley's hands are in fists. Her face is crimson, nearly the color of her dress. She marches over and grabs a waiter's arm. Get that cleaned up before it starts to smell. And then Hilly is surrounded by women, faces upturned, asking questions, arms out like they're trying to protect her. I heard Celia's been battling with drinking, but this problem with lying now? Hilly tells one of the Susies. It's a rumor she'd intended to spread about Minnie, in case the pie story ever got out. What do they call that? A compulsive liar? That's it, a compulsive liar. Hilly walks off with the women. Celia trapped him into that marriage, telling him she was pregnant. I guess she was a compulsive liar even back then. After Celia and Johnny leave, the party winds down quickly. Member wives look exhausted and tired of smiling. There is talk of the auction, of babysitters to get home to, but mostly of Celia Foot retching in the middle of it all. When the room is nearly empty at midnight, Hilly stands at the podium. She flips through the sheets of silent bids. Her lips move as she calculates. But she keeps looking off and shaking her head. Then she looks back down and curses because she has to start all over again. Hilly, I'm heading on back to your house. Hilly looks up from tallying. It's her mother, Mrs. Walters, looking even frailer than usual in her formal wear. She wears a floor-length gown, sky blue and beaded, from 1943. A white orchid wilts at her clavicle. A black woman in a white uniform is attached to her side. Now, Mama, don't you get in that refrigerator tonight. I won't have you keeping me up all night with your indigestion. You go right to bed, you hear? I can't even have some of Minnie's pie? Hilly narrows her eyes at her mother. That pie is in the garbage. Well, why'd you throw it out? I want it just for you. Hilly is still a moment, letting this sink in. You? You sign me up? I may not remember my name or what country I live in, but you and that pie is something I will never forget. You! You old, useless! Hilly throws the papers down that she's holding, scattering them everywhere. Mrs. Walters turns and hobbles toward the door, the nurse in tow. Well, call the papers, Bessie, she says. My daughter's mad at me again.